We're beginning this new sermon series, and I just turned on my microphone, so you aren't going deaf. If that's what you were curious, and you don't have to turn up the hearing aid, that was all me. So I can run those numbers off to you again. I won't do that. The question that we're asking today, who are we? That's a question that organizations, that churches, businesses ask themselves when they're determining why they exist, their purpose, their mission. They answer that question often with what's known as a mission statement. A mission statement. And in the mission statement, it can be worded in a variety of different ways. It can be put together and said in many different capacities. And so today, what we are going to be doing is rolling out our church's new mission statement that is going to be guiding us in why it is that we exist, and is going to be guiding us in what it is that we do for the foreseeable future. And this mission statement is something we're incredibly excited about, and I can't tell you how excited I am to share it with you today. With that, though, I want to offer one little caveat. Something that's often said, or a question that's often asked is, does a church really need a mission statement? Didn't Jesus give us a mission in the Great Commission? And Jesus certainly did do that, the Great Commission in Matthew 28, to go and to make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Jesus certainly did do that, and that is an incredible mission statement for the Big C Church, the universal church. However, as I look into the scriptures, though, I also see that there seems to be distinct callings, missions that are placed upon local congregations. And I primarily draw that out of Revelation chapter 2, Revelation 3. As Jesus is speaking to a church in Smyrna, he's speaking to a church in Ephesus, he's speaking to a church in Laodicea and others. He doesn't look at them and just say, go and live the Great Commission better. Instead, he looks into their historical context, their cultural context, their theology. And he says, you're doing these things well, and you need to do these things better. And this is who you need to be in light of those other things. Those churches were given specific directives beyond just the Great Commission. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today, is what we feel like and what we believe that God has been placing on our hearts to call us specifically, our local congregation, to move forward. What we need to move forward as. And so I'm going to take you word by word through this mission statement of ours that we are going to be rolling out to you today. And again, it's going to be guiding us in all that we do. It's a very important thing. And we don't want this to just simply be words. These will not just be words for us. I mean, they're going to be so much more than that. And so let's begin. It's simple here as we start. It's our mission as we go through this. And we'll just go through it again word by word. Our mission is where we start. Please show that on the screen there. Our mission. Our. I emphasize the plurality of that, because this isn't something that Phil just plucked out of the air and is presenting to everybody for the first time. This is something that we have been dissecting and working through for over 4 months. This is something that's been presented to really over 100 people as I was beginning to go work through the numbers of people that the different variations of this mission have been presented to. The elders have hashed it out. The staff has hashed it out. Leaders of prospective ministries have waded through this mission. I've also gone out to talk to different pastor friends of mine that have introduced mission statements to their congregation, just trying to find out what would be the best wording, what's the best way to communicate something like this to our people. And so this is something that many people have had an opportunity to view, to look at, to even speak into. And so this is ours. This is ours. It's our mission. It's why we will exist. It is what we will go after. It is what will guide us and direct us in all that we do. Now, in formulating a mission statement, I went out and I looked at other churches, businesses, organizations, nonprofits, their mission statements to try to identify some key characteristics as we were formulating this statement. Like, what are some key characteristics that every great mission statement really needs to have? I came across a couple I'll share with you. A few churches, I came across their mission statements. These would probably function more as what not to do, as opposed to what to do. But they are very, complete in what they had put together. So this is the People's Church. And the People's Church, their mission statement is called to proclaim the gospel of Christ and the beliefs of the evangelical Christian faith, to maintain the worship of God, and to inspire in all persons a love for Christ, a passion for righteousness, and a consciousness of their duties to God and their fellow human beings. We pledge our lives to Christ and covenant with each other to demonstrate his spirit through worship, witnessing, and ministry to the needs of the people of this church and the community. I mean, I was just tired when I finished that one. I came across another mission statement. This one is for a place called Seeds of Hope. The mission of Seeds of Hope is to sow seeds of hope of Jesus Christ in the hearts of many in Bloomfield, Pittsburgh, and to the ends of the earth. Man, that was solid. And then they just kept going. Our context is the emerging postmodern culture. Our postmoderns have rejected the trinity of modernism, reason, nature, progress, and the church that it is built upon. Lacking a meta-narrative, postmoderns turn to a sort of primitive tribalism or bury their pain in technology or consumerism. And at that point, I just stopped because I was confused and I had no idea what was getting talked about. And that is a long mission statement. And so I still looked at some other mission statements. I came across one for Marriott, to become the premier provider and facilitator of leisure and vacation experiences in the world. I mean, that's a very solid mission statement. About 6 or 7 years ago, Marriott turned a corner, and I mean, they've really done some incredible things in that industry. Here's another mission statement some of you might be aware of. We solve complex challenges, advance scientific discovery, and deliver innovative solutions to help our customers keep people safe. Does anybody know that mission statement? Oh, man. That's Lockheed Martin. Oh, I won't tell your bosses. Kidding, they probably don't even know your mission statement. But as I looked at these different mission statements, I found some things that stood out to me. You know, the good mission statement's unique. Churches are notorious for just copy and pasting these types of statements, and they're just words. Nobody's bought in. Nobody's living it. It's not guiding anything that they do. They just copy and paste and then move on. A box they check, and then we did that. Now let's go do whatever we want to do. It has to be unique. The days of the church being able to do everything for everyone are long gone. It's just too hard to do that today. That was a good, effective method years ago when nearly most people attended church. You didn't have to do anything with supreme excellence because people wanted to be at church no matter what. But those days are gone. Today, a church has to have a niche. You have to do something really well. There's too much competition out there. And I'm not talking about other churches. Please hear that. I'm just talking about the world. There's too much competition. Like, we have to have something that we do really, really well. And it has to have purpose behind it for people to not choose whatever that thing is and to choose to be here. You have to have something that's unique. You have to have a niche. I was speaking with a friend of mine. He doesn't attend this church. His wife and him, they love to love on their neighbors. He told me about a conversation he had with one of his neighbors. He said, I was talking to this gentleman, and I said, we'd love to have you come out. We got some great things planned this Sunday at our church. We'd love to have you come to our church. And they live about 30 minutes from the church that they attend. And then he said he was blown away by his neighbor's response. His neighbor said, I passed 10 churches from here to there before I get to your church. Why should I attend your church? My friend didn't have an answer to that question. And when I heard that, I said, I want to answer that question. Not why somebody should not attend another church. That's not what this is about. I want to answer that question for why we should, or you should, or I should attend this church. We have to be willing to answer the question for why you are really here. And that comes out of a unique mission that is provided. But it can't just be unique. It also, through some of our examples I shared with you, it needs to be short. It needs to be repeatable. Less than 10 words is preferable. That if somebody says, what is your church about? Like, you ought to know what your church is about. Like, this is who we are. It needs to be something that you can communicate. And what does that mean? That means it can't be complete. It can't be mission, vision, strategy, doctrine, structure. You can't do all of that in a statement. It can't be complete. Those things are very important. We'll have those things. But it has to be compelling. and a sentence and a statement. But you know what the most important thing is, characteristic of a good mission statement? It's you. It's me. It's the people that are willing to buy into it, to live it, to own it, to believe in it. When you do that, amazing things happen. Lives are changed, communities are transformed. That's what happens. I came across another mission statement. I'll share it with you. We want to pride ourselves on being open and fair. We live by respect. I'll emphasize this next word: integrity, communication, and excellence. You know who mission statement that was? Enron. If you don't know who Enron was, or if you need to be reminded, perhaps, they were a corporation that was a part of one of America's largest frauds and bankruptcies. Those were just words. The people weren't willing to live them out. But again, when people believe in their mission, they live it, they own it, they trust in it, incredible things happen. But it's not easy. That's always sort of the rub in this, is that we want it to be easy. We want it to be so natural and just not to be challenging. No hard decisions ever get made. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. It's going to be very difficult to live out and to see the mission fulfilled. A popular film series, many of you are aware of, Mission Impossible. In the midst of the general plot of those movies goes like this: that the character that Tom Cruise plays receives a mission, and on the surface that mission is seemingly impossible. But through the course of the movie, often with his shirt off and other things, hanging from things and whatever else, he accomplishes the mission. It becomes possible. And the impossible is really a misnomer. It's actually a possible mission, but it's very difficult. And that's the deal. Like, these missions, they aren't simple. They aren't going to be easy. There's a difficulty to it, but it's still possible. Because even in the midst of the difficulty, which would be culture pushing up against it, it would be a tendency to want to say yes to everything, but we can't say yes to everything. That becomes hard. That becomes challenging. It's difficult. But we serve, as Luke chapter 1, verse 37 says, nothing is impossible with our God. And so whatever mission God gives us, we have to understand that it is absolutely possible, which is where this series has been birthed from, Mission Possible. And so we have this mission that God, He has given us. But let's allow the statement to roll out a little bit more here, word by word for you. And this is really where the mission really begins, is this. Next slide is, our mission is to help your family. It's to help. It's to assist you. It's to care for you, to come alongside you. We want to help. Your family. Your family, your husband, your wife, your brothers, your sisters, your nephews, nieces, sons, daughters, parents, mothers, fathers, grandparents, grandmother, grandfather. We want to help your family. We want to help your family. Douglas County, where we reside, 52% of the homes in our county have a nuclear family. There is a husband, a wife, and children within that home, 52% of them, okay? 78% of them have, the next 26% or so is parents, their husbands and wives that still live together, and their children have aged out of the home. They're 18 or older. Some of them may live, they may be in and out of the house, but they still have a family that is there, and then obviously it breaks down from there. We have a large percentage of our county that is family. And you know what they're worried about? They're worried about their families. They're concerned for their families. Let me just ask you a question here. And you can respond with your hand held high, okay? Think about this, and I'll give you a moment to respond here. What are you worried about? What are you really concerned about? Many of you, you're thinking about your children, your grandchildren. You want to know, are they going to end up in jail? Like, let's just be honest. Are they going to be addicted to drugs? Who are they going to marry? What career are they going to choose? What degree are they going to pursue? We are in Douglas County again. The majority of the kids that we raise up here most likely will become monetarily successful. Will they be spiritually empty, though? Will they love Jesus? Will they love the church? Will they run away from the church? Will they run away from Jesus? Will they become spiritual, but that's about it? And then they get into the whole nature thing. What are they going to be? What are they going to become? These are the things that we're concerned about. These are the things that we are worried about. And so let me ask you a question. How many of you parents and grandparents are concerned about those kind of things? Just raise your hand. Yeah, almost all of us. And then those of us that didn't raise our hands, we have extended family that we are probably still concerned about as well. And their nephews, their nieces, their brothers and their sisters, their mothers and their fathers. We are concerned about these people. And this amazing thing happens with Jesus, okay, is that Jesus meets people where they are at, okay? See, for years, what the church has done with these missions and these visions of ours is we've gone to people and we've said, here's our mission, you need to get on board. And we have no concern about what is genuinely going on in people's lives. And what we haven't realized is the mission needs to resolve some of that issue, those concerns, those worries that people have. And so here's what Jesus does. Matthew chapter 20, great example of this. Probably one of the best examples of this. Says this, Jesus, he's on the way to Jerusalem, okay? He's going to die for our sins. He's almost there, but he's passing through Jericho, and this is what it says. Jesus stopped, and he calls to these two men. They're blind. They're crying out to him for mercy. They want him to help him. And Jesus, this is what he does. He says, what do you want me? He goes to these two men, and he says, what do you want me to do for you? He says, what are you concerned about? What are you worried about? What's bothering you? What's concerning you? What do you want me to do for you? He doesn't lead with his mission. He doesn't say, hey, I'm going to go die for your sins. Come and follow me. I mean, they're like, what? Are you serious? He enters into their life where they're at with what they're worried about, and he says, what do you want me to do for you? And they said, we want our sight. And Jesus had compassion on them. And that's something that we could have a little bit more of when it comes to the people around us. Because we just think that, well, you just need to get it. You just need to want to be saved, right? The people that we try to reach. You should just want to be with Jesus. And they're like, what? No, this is really what I'm worried about. And we're like, no, you need to get it. And what we need to say is like Jesus, what we need to be and do like Jesus is have a little bit of compassion and mercy for what it is these people are genuinely worried about, concerned about. And so what does Jesus do? He enters into their life where they're at. He has compassion upon them, and he meets their need. He touched their eyes and gave them their sight back. Immediately they received their sight, and then guess what? And then they followed him. Because he was willing to meet them with where they were at, with what they were really worried about, with what it was that they were really struggling with. And then they jumped on board with the mission and the vision of where it was that he was really going, which was to Jerusalem to ultimately die for their sins. And so we're going to enter into people's lives with what it is that they're concerned about, with what it is that you're concerned about. And we're going to be a solution to that because we believe Jesus is the ultimate solution to those things. And with that, though, I know that there are some of you here who don't necessarily have children, and you may not necessarily have a teen. You may not even be married. And this mission is for you, too, because you still have family. There's a gentleman in our church, his name's Bill. He's not married. He doesn't have children. But he does have a mother, a sister, and a brother. His brother was recently diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He's gone through treatments, just went through a very invasive and intensive surgery, but he doesn't believe in Jesus. And so obviously we told Bill, hey, we will pray for you. We will pray for Bill in this situation because we care about his brother, because that's Bill's family. And we said, I specifically said to Bill, I said, if you would like me to call your brother, I will call him and I'll pray with him. And he didn't want me to call him and pray with him. But we care about his family because that's his family, and he wants his brother to believe in Jesus, but he doesn't. And that's important to us. And then there's still some of you, you may be single. Maybe that's maybe you've chosen to not become married, or whatever your circumstance may be, or maybe one day you will be married. And this mission is for you because we want to invest in you. We want to prepare you for who it is that you need to marry, to marry the right person that God would have you to marry. And maybe you're married, but you don't have children, and we want to invest in you And we want to help you to know how to raise your children up in the Lord. And that's why we're offering some of the things that we're offering. In a few moments, I'll share some of the resources and some of the implications of this mission upon us, that it's going to have upon us as a church. But our mission is to help your family. But that's not it. The next part of it is to help your family follow Jesus. Because as we consider the problems, as we consider the issues that you are dealing with, that others are dealing with, we believe that the ultimate solution to those issues is ultimately Jesus. Like, Jesus is the one that's going to help us with so many of the concerns, so many of the worries, so many of the problems that we have. And I want to share with you something I recently came across as I was preparing for this. Because what I've been talking to you about mainly has been this topic on a micro level, on a personal level. And I'll just, how many of you here, let me just throw it, and I'm going to talk to you about this more on a macro level. How many of you here are concerned about the direction of our nation? Oh my gosh, yeah, there you go. Everybody's concerned about that. Hello. There's a book written in 1979. It's by a man named Carl Wilson. The book is entitled Our Dance is Turned to Death. And in this book, he identifies a common pattern of family decline and national decline. And he specifically relates it back to the decline of the Greek and the Roman empires. And he takes us through 7 stages of this decline that ultimately ends in people rejecting God and Jesus altogether. The first stage is this, that men cease to lead their families spiritually. Spiritual and moral development becomes secondary. It's not that they don't believe in those things. Just the first stage of a family decline is the men don't care about the spiritual welfare of their families. Second stage, men selfishly neglect the care of their wives and children to pursue material wealth, political and military power. Those things, material values become the dominant thought of them, and they begin to exalt their own role as individuals. The third stage involves a change in a man's sexual values. Men who were preoccupied with business or war either neglect their wives or become involved with other women or homosexuality. Ultimately, a double standard of morality develops. And you notice the common theme here with these first few stages is the men. Fourth stage, as a byproduct of the first few stages, begins to affect the women. The role of the woman at home and with children loses value and status. Women are neglected, their roles devalued. Soon they revolt to gain access to the wealth and the freedoms of sex outside of marriage that men have pursued. Women also began to minimize the importance of giving birth to children and raising their children. Also, marriage laws are changed to make divorce easier. And this is absolutely true in the Roman Empire. 3rd century BC, if you were to get a divorce, you would be ostracized from your community. 1st century BC, if you were to get a divorce, you're just more the subject of gossip, but there's no more shame associated with it. 1st century AD, divorce and separation with marriages was just accepted and expected when it came to marriage in the Roman Empire. 5th stage, husbands and wives compete rather than complement one another. They competed for money, home leadership, and affection of their children. This resulted in hostility and frustration and even possible homosexuality in the children. Many children were unwanted, aborted, abandoned, molested, undisciplined. The more undisciplined the children became, the more social pressure there was to not have children. The breakdown of this home would produce anarchy. 6th stage, selfish individualism grew and carried over into society, fragmenting it into smaller groups. The nation was thus weakened by internal conflict. The decrease in the birth rate produced an older population that had less ability to defend itself and became more vulnerable to enemies. The 7th and final stage, parental authorities diminish, ethical moral principles disappear, a complete rejection of God takes place, which ultimately affects economy and government. And thus, by the internal weakness and fragmentation of the society, the country falls apart. And although that is an ancient pattern with Rome and Greece and others, nations, you can certainly see some parallels with ours. But where did it all start? It started in the family. And you're concerned about the nation. Hard to impact the entire nation. But maybe it's not as hard as what we think if we're willing to invest and pour into our families the way that we ought to. If we are willing to be a beacon of light into our community to help them to follow Jesus, to help the families that are here, to be part of the solution of so much of what it is that we are concerned about. I mean, we are in Douglas County. Douglas County. Full of families. If you want to impact the families, if you want to impact this county, you have to be willing to invest in the families. If we do that and we truly begin to influence and make progress with the families and the people that we are investing in this community, what happens in the city will impact this county. And did you not see? I mean, all of our hearts were broken this past week with the deputy who lost his life. President Trump, he sends his condolences and his prayers. To who? To Douglas County. Because this county is that significant. And if we can be that kind of an influence to invest into the families in this county, this is the kind of county that will impact a state and a country, okay? And as we're concerned about our nation, if we can be a place that's going to invest in the family the way that we ought, that is going to trickle out into this county, which inevitably will trickle out into the state and into our country. That is what we have at stake here. That is the potential of this mission that we are rolling out. And I know it sounds like it's an impossible mission, but nothing is impossible with our God. Nothing is impossible with our God. And so there's some resources. Some things that we are going to steps that we're going to begin to take over just the next few months. We've invested in a new curriculum that presents Jesus in dynamic ways to our children and our students. There's continuity through our programming now, where there was not that. And so that is a step that we are taking. These are small steps. But you guess what? Guess what? Nehemiah rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem one brick at a time. And so we take it one brick at a time. There's a men's study that I'll be leading. It starts January 23rd. It's a Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. It's about 30 minutes. It's about 30 minutes of video, 30 minutes of discussion, 10, 15 minutes of prayer. You're out here by 7:15. You can pick up the workbook in our bookstore, and if I'm not sure if they've gotten them this today. But next week we'll have them available for you if you'd like to attend that. We have a marriage class that's already been mentioned. Wednesday, January 24th, that starts. Grace-filled marriage. Lasts for 8 weeks. Lord knows we could all use a little more grace in our marriages. I need more grace. I need more grace for my wife. Every marriage could benefit from some more grace. Another thing that we're going to do is we're going to have family weekends. The 5th Sundays of the month. There's 4 of those every year. We're going to invite the families to worship together. We'll still provide some minimal programming from 0 to 4 years old, but other than that, all of the families are going to come together, and we'll worship together. And there's much data there's a significant amount of data that communicates that when you have multi-generational, the amount of influence that happens in children's lives whenever there's a multi-generational close proximity to one another. There's multi-generational worship that is transpiring. So the 5th Sundays of every month, we're going to be coming together. Those will be family weekends here at Valley View. We may even have to add another service because we don't have room with all the children. Who knows? We'll see. We'll let you know. And I know that with this, though, some of you, your families may be not in a good spot. I know that with some of this, that maybe for you, you haven't come from a good family. You might even say, I don't even have a family. They don't have anything to do with me. I want to take you to a promise that's found in Exodus chapter 20. And I'm going to share it with you here. This is God speaking. And he says, you shall not bow down to them or worship them. He's referring to idols. We all have idols. He says, don't bow down to them. Don't worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of this who hate me. And some of us, we felt that. We've been a part of that third and that fourth generation of shortcomings and sins and mistakes of our parents and our grandparents and great-grandparents. You've experienced that. But here's what's even greater than that, though. But showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. And here's the deal for you, is you may not have had it good, but this is a multi-generational mission that we're talking about here. And you can make a difference for generations to come. And it can start with you. You can change the trajectory of your family forever by simply loving God and obeying his commandments. And he's promised to bless you for 1,000 generations. And some of us, can you just have to be blind to not realize how blessed you are to live in America, to live in Douglas County. Why? Why is it that you get to learn about Jesus? Why is it that you've been blessed as you have? Maybe it's because generations ago there was somebody that did some things, that believed God's word, that believed his promises, that he or she, they obeyed, they loved God, and now you get to be the benefactor of that. And they were living a mission that they didn't even know that they were living, but they were believing in promises that they knew that God had given them. And you get to continue that on. And you can make a difference for the rest, for your family tree for years and years to come. And God has promised us that. And I believe that that is going to be one of the great byproducts of this mission that we're going to be living out as we move forward. Our mission is to help your family follow Jesus. Let's pray. And then Justin